Well, thanks for joining us. Happy Friday to you. I'm Marlon Bowling, your tour guide to the ag commodities. I'm joined by Brian Hoops, president of Midwest Market Solutions. And here it is, Friday. Normally, we would be talking about wrapping up the trading week here, Brian. But this is a little bit unusual because, well, today we get our weekly export sales numbers. Why? Because we had a holiday on Monday. So everything was shoved back a day. And let's take a look at what the numbers are this week. So here we are showing weekly export sales on corn of 44,600 tons. That is not a misprint, as Tim Ross would say. That is an actual number because it includes 111,200 tons that were sold for the new crop, but it also includes net sales reductions or cancellations of 66,600 tons. So you have a net total of only 44,600 tons. Yikes. Soybeans came in at only 80,100 tons. Why? Well, we sold 240,100 tons for the new crop, but we had net cancellations of 160,000 tons for the old crop. Marketing year low, by the way. So, grand total of 80,000 tons. Now, one bright spot, soy meal sales, 179,200 tons. That was pretty lofty. On the other hand, we had no soy oil sales, and you had wheat at 286,400 tons that were sold last week. That was down from what we had the week before. So, all in all, Brian, what do you think here?
Well, good morning, Marlon. Certainly some disappointing numbers here, I think, as we had old crop corn, a net reduction, 2.6 million bushels. Old crop soybeans also a net reduction of 5.9 million bushels. And some of that, about half of it, is actually China canceling soybean purchases. That's been rumored this week that we were going to see a bunch of Chinese cancellations. So it's not a complete surprise to the trade, but it's a little bit disappointing, no doubt. We are adding bushels back into our balance sheets. It probably won't show up in this next week's supply and demand numbers, but these old crop sales for both corn and soybeans, now we're in jeopardy of not reaching the USDA forecast. Our inspections have slowed, our sales have slowed, as well as our inspections, and so that means that USDA may have to revise those export numbers down just a little bit, and that adds bushels back into our balance sheets. New crop sales also really disappointing in here. Corn came in at 4.4 million bushels, soybeans at about 8.8. That is not great numbers. Wheat sales, this is our main time frame to export some wheat. 10.5 million bushels. Again, not great numbers for anything. And part of that has to do with the U.S. dollar. We're higher once again. We're at new contract highs. Our exports are unlikely to improve significantly with the dollar at this strong levels, unless you have a country that really has some poor yields and a real supply issue, and the U.S. has to take over to meet those exports, similar to what we saw through the winter months with South America, Argentina, Brazil, both having some crop issues and struggles at times. The U.S. stepped in and sold corn and soybeans. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle to export this product.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar, as we can see on the screen, September futures up 116 points at 107.075. Now let's look at our overnight grain trade here in advance of this export sales report. On the corn overnight, we did have September up 7 1/4 at 616 1/4. On soybeans last night, we had the August contract down 3/4 cent. 14.84 1/2 was the last trade. However, November was up 5 3/4 cents in the overnight trade. With our quotes provided by Barchard on the wheat in Chicago, September was 20 1/4 higher at 8.56 3/4 last night. So big gains there. In Kansas City, September was up 15 1/4 cents. And in Minneapolis, we had September going up by 27 3/4 cents at 9.62 1/4. And of course, you saw Tim Ross talking about the extreme heat in the plains all the way up in the Dakotas. All right, we'll come back and talk about our beef and our pork exports and what lies ahead for the livestock trade when we come back. All right, we're back with you. We're going to be talking with Brian Hoops about what's going on in our markets. And one thing about it, we were talking about the export sales on the corn, the wheat, and the soybeans. We also had numbers here for grain sorghum, also for cotton and for rice. So let's take a quick look at those as well. Now, on the grain sorghum sales, we had 54,000 tons. We had upland cotton, a very large number. Look at that, 419,300 running bales. That was very impressive last week. And we had rice coming in at 32,000 tons. Now for the meat side, let's go to the beef and also to the pork sales from last week. Well, here you had the beef coming in at 11,000 tons this time, and you had pork at 31,200 tons. That beef number was down 35% from what we had a week ago. The pork number was down just 3%. Looks like, well, China was in there buying both of them. They bought 1,600 tons of U.S. beef, but they bought 11,400 tons of U.S. pork last week. So what does that mean to the market, Brian?
Oh yeah, the pork numbers were pretty decent. China showed up as a buyer, very much in line with what we've seen over the last several weeks. These beef sales, however, that's a disappointment, down significantly from previous weeks. Japan was our biggest buyer there. And, I think overall that beef number is going to be a real disappointment to the trade. We're hoping that we can see better export business for our beef products, but no, Mexico, China did really not show up. In fact, China canceled a small amount of beef sales previously. So I have to believe trade's going to take that as a negative, but pork sales, it's a good number. It's positive. Mexico, China are two biggest buyers traditionally, and they were showing up this week as our biggest buyers as well.
So have you heard anything on the wire this week about something else that maybe China might be interested in as far as U.S. ag goods?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that, Marlon, because the everybody's wanting to know why spring wheat. Minneapolis wheat is the upside leader yesterday in the overnight. We're hearing rumors that China is interested in U.S. wheat off the Pacific Northwest. So some of that may be shipped out as U.S. milling wheat. There may be some Kansas City hard red wheat shipped out of that area as well. But that's what's driving the wheat market higher right now is, not only these heat that we have in the plains and in the European Union, but also rumors that China demand is surfacing for U.S. wheat products.
Well, that would seem to maybe suggest that they think the low is in for a while if they're in there buying now. That's just the way they operate. I want to take a look at the Dow here overnight, Brian. On the Dow Jones Industrial Average, we saw where the dollar was strong. The Dow is down 34 points at last check on the September futures. And on the crude oil, up or down today? Well, we're up again, $2.10 higher at 104.83 per barrel. So that's the latest on that angle anyway on the energy markets. Thanks, Brian, for talking with us. Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions. Tammy will get these markets underway at the bottom of the hour.